My name is Stephen Jaffe. I'm running for the United States Congress in the 12th District of California, which is essentially 90% of the city of San Francisco. My primary opponent, I'm a Democrat, and my primary opponent is Nancy Pelosi. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I've been a lawyer for, believe it or not, 46 years. And for most of that, I've been an employment law lawyer. I represent employees only. I have probably handled over 1,000 cases in the last 46 years. I've represented, so far as I know, pretty much every person who is in a protected class of persons by the law, representing them as employees. The list is long. I think you probably all well know most of it. Age, race, gender, nationality, disability, religion, did I say religion? Gender, every single one of them. In addition, I represent people who have been retaliated against for doing what's called a protected act in their employment, and I represent whistleblowers who blow the whistle on their employers and get retaliated against them for that. I'll tell you about, I think, a few of the most interesting cases I've had because shed some light on who I am and what I do. The longest trial I've ever had was 3 months. It was in the county seat of Contra Costa County. I represented 6 African American police officers in a race discrimination case against the city of Richmond. And I did that. I took over the case a year before the trial because it had been going on for years. And frankly, I did it. It's a very tough county to try a race discrimination case in, particularly in Martinez. It was an all-white jury, and all 6 of my clients were black. But I did it because I really felt it was the right thing to do. And sometimes I strangely take cases because it's the right thing to do, not necessarily because I think I'm going to make a lot of money for them. I represented a woman against UPS who had been double demoted after working there 30 years. It was a gender discrimination case. I won that case in the Federal District Court and won an appeal of it in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I represented a guy named Rick, who I believe was the first straight male against gay male sex harassment case ever tried in San Francisco. And if you know the culture in San Francisco, you'll know what a big deal that was. That was against Winterland Company, the company that had been started by Bill Graham. And I won that trial. And most recently, I represented a young man. He's 16 now. He was 12 when I took on the case. And this is probably my most interesting case. It's against the Palo Alto Unified School District. It's still going on, but I just won a case in an appeal in the Ninth Circuit. And this young man was told he was going to have to transfer schools from one side of the city to the other, making just completely putting his life in an uproar, and his parents' life, for transportation and other reasons. And the reason the school gave for needing to transfer him was he was the carrier of 2 genetic markers for a disease which he may or may not ever contract, solely because he carried genetic markers. The school contended that he was a medical danger to 2 other students in the school. There's no science behind that, and ultimately that's what happened. So those are the nature of the kind of cases that I take on. The last one involves a raccoon, if anybody wants to hear about it. Talk to me after I speak. So why am I here? Here I am in part of Los Angeles, here in Southern California, and the district I'm running to be elected in is up in San Francisco. And none of you, so far as I know, can vote for me here. So why am I here talking to you? I'm here because my election, Jaffe versus Pelosi, in 2018, in June is the primary, is, I believe, the most single important congressional election in the United States. And it's not because of who I am, although I like to think it was. It's because of who my opponent is. Nancy Pelosi is the symbol representing the corporate greed and democratic elitist policies that I believe most of you here don't like and oppose. I believe that is to be the case. And therefore, if I can come close to her and finish second in the primary, which I have every intention of doing, finishing strongly second in the primary, then because of California's top two primary rules, the general election in November will be two candidates, me and her. And all the other candidates, the Green Party, the Peace and Freedom Party, the Republican Party, all the other ones will drop off the ballot. And I will get all their votes because Ms. Pelosi is not popular with any of them. And I'm in this to win it. I'm not doing it to make a name. I'm too old to do that. And I'm doing it to win it. And I'm doing it because the people of San Francisco deserve a voice in the United States Congress, and they do not have one. Right now, they have a representative who is living in an isolated bubble of privilege and arrogance. She is profoundly disconnected from her constituents. I have been walking around talking to thousands of people in San Francisco for the last couple of years in anticipation when I started to first think about this. And she is just disconnected with them completely. She has no idea what they want, and she does not represent them. The best example of that I can give you is a subject which I think is probably familiar with all of you, the single payer issue. I would say 70 to 80% of the registered Democrats in San Francisco, and probably about 65 to 70% of everybody, all the voters in San Francisco, want single payer. Nancy Pelosi is the biggest impediment in the United States to the passage of single payer in this country. She not only does not support it, she affirmatively blocks it. How do I know this? How do I know she does it? Because she'll tell you she doesn't. She never endorsed 562 in the state. She did not co-sponsor 676, which is John Conyers' bill, pending in the House of Representatives. Right now, she won't co-sponsor it for single payer. She will not join or endorse Bernie Sanders' new bill in the Senate, 1804, I think I got it right that time, for single payer. And why does she do this? There's an obvious answer. She does it because she gets money from industries and companies which have a very large stake in preventing the passage of single payer. The insurance industries, the healthcare industries, and big pharma. And she likes to brag about how much money she raises for the Democrats, and she does raise a lot of money. But that's not, you have to look a little deeper than just, here's the number. You have to look at where the money is coming from and what she's giving up to get the money. And what she's giving up is her vote. She's voting for her donors, not for her constituents. So I am running to give a voice to the people and the voters of San Francisco, which they have not had for a long time now, and I think which they richly deserve. I made some notes about some of the recent comments Ms. Pelosi made publicly, and this is within the last few months. I'm not reaching back years. Within the last few days, she said, wouldn't it be wonderful if Mitt Romney was president? About a week ago, when she was asked what she thought about the challenges that some of the Democratic congresspeople are making of her leadership in Congress, she said, I'm not going to waste my time thinking or addressing that issue. She says that a woman's right to control her body, her words are, is fading as an issue in the Democratic Party. She refuses to oppose fracking, which will destroy the economy. The environment. Might destroy the economy also. All right. The list goes on and on to show you how out of touch she is, really, with reality. With reality. So I am here tonight asking for your endorsement. And the reason I want to get your endorsement is because when I beat her, when I take her on, when I finish strongly second in the primary and take her on, it is going to send a wave, a shockwave of encouragement across the United States to every progressive candidate out there. because I will have taken down, I was going to say the head of the snake, but that's not nice. The person at the very top of what we all oppose. So I seek the endorsement of your club, and I hope I'll have a chance to answer questions. I'd much rather talk to people than listen to myself talk. So, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask me? Yes, sir.
What are your ideas on attacking income inequality?
He wants to know my idea of attacking income inequality. First, I should say, and I'm going to ask my campaign manager, Lily, to pass out my platform sitting out there, I think. So you'll detailed on all my issues. The destruction and the disappearing of the middle class is horrible, and I am against it. I and my cousin Bob, who's sitting here, who's about my age, we grew up and we remember a time in the 50s and 60s which was the most prosperous time the United States has ever had, the 50s and the 60s. And during that time, when a single job holder could support a whole family without working 2 jobs, does anybody know what the top income tax bracket was?
91.
That's right, 91%. The more you earned, the more you paid. I propose to put another graduated tax back into the law. The taxes that are now only feed the 1% or the 1/10 of 1%. We need our middle class back, and we need our prosperity back.
Here.
And, I couldn't feel yes, sir.
To what extent, as an activist or in other ways in your district, have you sort of worked with that member of Congress to try to see if, in this case, she will do things different? In other words, have you, what's been your, you understand why it's saying that's important? In other words, that, the first thing is, I like Democrats to vote like Democrats, not like Republicans. So one of the first things to do is ask them to do that. Have you done it?
Oh, yes. I've done it, and so have a lot of other people have done it. She is so well entrenched and so isolated, and I call it siloed, that it's very difficult to get into direct communications with her. I've talked to her people. I go to DCCC meetings in San Francisco all the time, and they're not listening. They're not listening. It's I guess it's a kind of cognitive dissonance for them. They hear something they don't like and they just dismiss it. We know she thinks she knows better than everybody at this point. If you want to know what I've done in my activism, I have been politically active for about 5 years. I have worked on various campaigns for progressives. I was really inspired by Bernie Sanders. I worked very hard in his campaign, gave him a lot of money, and I was recruited by his national campaign to go to the state of Nevada to legally supervise what turned out to be chaotic Nevada caucuses.
Just 5 more minutes, okay?
Okay,
5 more minutes.
that's fine. And I have been, I am known as a Bernie-crat. I was endorsed by the San Francisco Bernie-crats, as you will see if you look at my paperwork here. And I was endorsed by the National Veterans for Bernie. And my platform, I think, is wholly on the progressive side of pretty much every issue that you care to talk about. I've talked to Nancy Pelosi's lieutenants. I've tried to talk to her daughter, who Nancy wants to hand the seat off to in 2020. She feels an entitlement to do that. Christine, yes, Christine Pelosi. Just the way her father handed the mayorship of Baltimore off to her brother. It's a family thing for her, and she feels entitled to hand it off to whoever she wants. It's my intention to kind of wreck that plan for her. So, I feel very good about my credentials as an activist. Trying to get her to change her ways at this point, I think, is I've done it. I think it's pretty futile, to be honest with you. Anything else? Yes, sir.
When you get elected and go to Congress, would you pledge to introduce a bill to end outlaw reparative therapy? Reparative therapy is.
You'll have to define that for me.
Yeah,
so
reparative therapy is what the Christian right uses to ungay the gay in people. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you as a lawyer, from what I know about, the gay cure and all this,
Yeah.
from what I know about the tactics that are used by them, it's already illegal. I would seek to have district attorneys enforce the law, because what they're doing to these kids is child abuse. And I would try to have that
I'm saying
prosecuted.
national law. It's illegal here in the state of California for minors, but I'm saying a national law that blankets. I don't care if you're of age or underage.
Well, it's a very tricky subject on the national level for a couple of reasons. One, you start to tread on First Amendment rights of exercise, freedom of exercise of religion, but more importantly, most of the laws pertaining to what most of us think of as the crimes, murder, rape, robbery, or so on, are all state laws. There are not a lot of federal laws on crimes that occur in everyday life. Would I agree with such a law? Absolutely. Would I try to get it passed? Yes. It would be tricky, to be candid with you. Yes, sir.
Because I'm a proud union member, and I want to make sure I at least ask the question, how can you in Congress strengthen union membership?
Well, I think the NLRB has to be reinforced and reinvigorated in terms of enforcing the law. I believe in unions very strongly. I grew up, and my cousin Bob is here again. We grew up in what was probably the strongest union town that's ever existed in the country, which was Detroit when the UAW ran it. And that's where a lot of my progressivism comes from. And I believe in unions, and I certainly would support them. It's hard to focus on a particular act unless you give me more specifics, but I assure you I am very much pro-union. Nancy Pelosi has not acknowledged my campaign or even my existence. It's my intention to embarrass and shame her into debating me, because Nancy does not speak well extemporaneously. She speaks scripted, and if I am fortunate enough to get her to debate me, I think that it will greatly magnify my chances of beating her in the general election. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.